The sea was calm that evening. That's the part that haunts me most. How quiet everything was before it ended. The Atlantic stretched out like an endless mirror under the fading sun, and the MV Horizon Star, our cargo ship, moved through it as if it owned the world. We were 3 days from Lisbon, hauling containers of machinery and grain bound for Halifax. It was supposed to be a routine crossing, the kind I'd done a dozen times before that I just finished my shift in the engine room, hands still smelling of oil and diesel when the sky changed. The light turned strange, copper and gray, and the wind came alive. I remember stepping onto the deck and watching the waves begin to roll heavier, the horizon tilting in slow motion. The radio crackled with the captain's voice, calm but clipped, "Storm warning. All hands secure equipment and stay below deck until further orders." We'd seen storms before. I wasn't worried. None of us were. That was our first mistake. By the time the rain came, it came sideways, stabbing through the air in blinding sheets. The ship groaned under the strain, the hull shuddering as if it might split in two. I was below deck with Marco and Singh, double-checking the cargo locks, when the first container broke free. The crash sounded like thunder inside a metal drum. One container smashed against another, sending sparks into the air. Singh shouted something I couldn't hear, then the lights flickered and died. That was when the explosion hit. I never saw the source. Maybe the fuel line, maybe an electrical short, but it ripped through the ship like a sledgehammer. The floor lifted beneath me. I felt the heat before the sound reached my ears, a hot, violent gust that threw me into a wall. My head rang. The world turned to smoke and flame. I remember screaming for Marco, but his voice was gone, swallowed by the roar. The alarms blared, shrill, desperate. Water rushed in through a split in the hull, black and relentless. The Horizon Star was dying. I stumbled toward the stairwell, half blind, clutching the railing as the deck tilted. The ship was listing hard to port. Every second felt like a heartbeat away from the end. My boots slipped on the oil-slicked floor as I climbed, lungs burning with smoke. When I burst onto the main deck, the night hit me like a hammer. The storm was in full fury, waves crashing 20 feet high, lightning slicing through the darkness. The air reeked of burning metal and salt. The captain was shouting orders near the bridge, trying to get a distress call out, but I could tell from his face it was too late. The ship was doomed. "Get to the lifeboats!" someone screamed. But the lifeboats, at least the ones on the port side, were gone, torn away by the wind. I ran to the starboard, clutching at the railing, half blinded by rain. I saw one boat still hanging from the davits, 3 men already inside, trying to lower it. I sprinted toward them, and then the deck gave way. The ship rolled, groaning like a dying animal. Containers slid into the sea, vanishing with terrible splashes. The angle was too steep now. I grabbed a loose cable, holding on as gravity tried to pull me into the abyss. And then it happened. The ship lurched one final time, and I was airborne. The fall felt endless. Cold air, salt spray, weightlessness, and then the sea slammed into me like a wall. Every molecule of water seemed to punch the air from my lungs. I kicked upward, desperate, breaking the surface just in time to take a breath before a wave buried me again. I fought through it, coughing, eyes stinging, until I found a floating piece of debris, the broken lid of a cargo crate. I clung to it with both arms, chest heaving. When I looked back, the Horizon Star was already half submerged. The bow pointed toward the sky like a monument, flames licking the rain as if refusing to die quietly. I could see tiny figures, silhouettes against the lightning, and then they were gone, swallowed by the sea. The ship's horn let out one final, hollow moan before silence took over. The kind of silence that only the ocean can make. Vast, endless, merciless. I don't know how long I floated like that. Time didn't exist anymore, only the rhythm of waves and my own ragged breathing. My life jacket kept me afloat, though every swell felt like it wanted to tear me away from the crate. The rain mixed with seawater on my face, blurring everything. At one point, I thought I saw another survivor, a head bobbing a few yards away. I shouted, "Hey, over here!" But the wind stole my voice. A flash of lightning revealed only debris. No one else. The realization hit me like another wave. I might be the only one left. I checked my pockets. Mostly instinct, not hope. A small waterproof flashlight. A whistle. No food, no radio, no flare. My watch was cracked, but it still ticked faintly, the second hand moving in perfect indifference to my chaos. That I looked at it, 22:10. The ship had gone down around 10 o'clock. That was the beginning of hour 1. I told myself to focus. Stay awake. Stay afloat. Stay alive. The cold began to creep in, threading through the seams of my clothes. I tried to keep my muscles moving, kicking lightly to keep circulation. Every few minutes, I blew the whistle, though I knew no one could hear it over the storm. The waves began to calm after a while, or maybe I just got used to their rhythm. The rain eased into a fine mist. The fire from the wreck faded behind me until all that was left was darkness, and the faint glow of stars between torn clouds. That's when the fear settled in, the deep, quiet kind that lives under your skin. It wasn't the panic of drowning anymore. It was the realization that I might be out here for hours, maybe days, and no one knew where I was. Where I was. Something brushed against my leg. I jerked, heart hammering, scanning the water. Probably debris. Or maybe not. The Atlantic is alive in ways you don't want to think about when you're floating in it. I pulled my legs closer, gripping the crate tighter. That I tried to remember the survival training we'd done years ago. Conserve energy, stay calm, stay visible. Simple rules that sounded easy in a classroom, impossible in the real thing. My throat burned with salt water. My arms trembled. The flashlight beam barely pierced the darkness, but I flicked it a few times, just in case someone was looking. The sea only reflected it back. Vast, empty, indifferent. When the watch hit 2300 hours, I realized I'd survived 1 full hour. 4 more to go. If I was lucky, I whispered into the dark, half a prayer, half a promise. I'm not dying here. Not like this. The sea has its own heartbeat. After the wreck, I started to feel it. The steady pulse beneath me, slow and ancient, like the ocean itself was breathing. Each rise and fall of the swell became a reminder. I was still here, still alive, for now. But the cold was creeping in, and it was hungry. I'd been floating maybe an hour when my body began to shake uncontrollably. The life jacket kept my head above water, but the wet fabric clung to me like ice. The wind had shifted, sharp and merciless, turning the surface of the Atlantic into broken glass. I curled against the crate, trying to trap some warmth, but there was no warmth left to trap. I focused on breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Slow. Control the panic. The cold plays tricks on your mind. It whispers that you're tired, that it's okay to close your eyes for just a second. That second is all it needs. All it needs. My flashlight was dying. The beam flickered weakly across the waves, then dimmed to nothing. I tapped it, pleaded with it, but it was gone. Another small comfort stolen by the sea. I tucked it into my pocket anyway. Keeping it felt like keeping hope, even if it was useless now. The whistle was next. Every few minutes I blew it, the shrill sound vanishing into the blackness. It gave me something to do, something to fight against the emptiness. But the only reply I ever got was the wind. The wreck was out of sight now. The storm must have carried me miles away. I thought about the emergency beacon the captain tried to activate. If it went through, maybe rescue teams were already searching. But the Atlantic was vast, and I was a speck lost in it. I started to count the waves. 1, 2, 3, 4. A simple rhythm. When I lost count, I'd start again. Kept my mind from drifting. I thought of Marco and Singh, of the others. I didn't know if any of them made it to a lifeboat. Maybe they were out here too, clinging to their own pieces of wreckage, praying for dawn. A sudden sound, thump. Something hit the crate from below. I froze, every nerve on fire. It happened again. A dull bump, then a scraping noise. Sharks. The thought stabbed through me. I'd heard the stories. Survivors adrift in open water, stalked by things beneath. My legs stiffened. I drew them up as close as I could, clutching the crate so hard my knuckles ached. The sea went quiet again, but I could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching from below. Lightning flashed in the distance, illuminating the water for a heartbeat, and I saw it. A shadow, long and slow-moving, circling just beneath the surface. Then gone. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I whispered to myself, "Stay still. Don't thrash. Don't give it a reason." Minutes crawled by. My breath fogged the air. The water felt thicker now, heavier, pressing against me like a living thing. The shadow didn't come back, or maybe it did and I just couldn't see it anymore. I didn't want to look. Around midnight, the clouds began to break. The moon pushed through, pale and ghostly, casting silver light over the waves. The ocean transformed, from black chaos to rolling silver hills. It was beautiful in a cruel way, too vast for me to comprehend, too ancient to care that one tiny life was fighting to exist in it. The moonlight gave me enough to see the crate, a weathered piece of oak maybe from the deck cargo. I tried to haul myself higher, but every movement sent pain shooting through my arms. My fingers were going numb. The edges of the crate dug into my skin, leaving bruises I couldn't even feel anymore. That's when the first hallucination came. I saw a light on the horizon. Steady, orange, too low to be a star. My heart leapt. I squinted, blinking away salt and rain. It was a ship. It had to be HEY. I screamed, voice cracking. "Over here. Help!" I blew the whistle, waved my arm, kicked at the water. The light seemed to move, then flicker, closer, I thought. But as I stared, it broke apart, scattering into dozens of tiny dots. Not a ship, just reflections of the stars on the waves. My mind had betrayed me that I started laughing. A dry, broken sound that hurt my chest. The kind of laugh that's half a sob. The ocean doesn't need to kill you quickly. It just waits for you to lose hope, and then it finishes the job. The job. I tried to focus on something real. Anything. So I looked up. The stars were everywhere, bright, endless, and so impossibly far away. I'd never really noticed them before. Not like this. At sea, we live under them every night. But there's always light from the ship, or work to distract us. Now they were all I had. I picked one. The brightest one, near the horizon, and decided that was home. If I could keep my eyes on it, maybe I wouldn't drift too far from sanity. I talked to it, quietly, like it was a person. "You're my lighthouse now," I told it. "You stay right there, yeah? Don't move." And for a while it helped. I floated, watching that single point of light, whispering nonsense to keep my mind steady. Then I started thinking about my sister, Elena. She'd always joked that I'd marry the sea someday. "You love it too much to ever come back," she used to say, half teasing, half worried. I wondered what she'd think now, her brother, alone in the middle of the Atlantic, talking to a star. I pictured her face, her voice, the way she hugged me before I boarded last month. "Be careful," she'd said. "Promise me you'll come home." I'd laughed it off. I'd always come home before. I closed my eyes and whispered, "I promise." The memory brought warmth. Faint, fragile, but real. Enough to push back the cold for a few minutes. The waves began to change again. They weren't crashing anymore, just rolling long, slow swells that lifted and dropped me gently. The wind had died. The silence was almost eerie after the chaos of the storm. I could hear the small sounds again, the drip of water from the crate, the distant hiss of the sea. Somewhere far away, thunder rumbled, but it was faint, moving east. The worst was over. That should have comforted me. Didn't. Without the storm, there was no noise to fight the thoughts creeping in. My teeth chattered uncontrollably. My muscles ached from tension. The night stretched on, endless. Then, something new. A faint hum. Low, mechanical. Real. I twisted, scanning the horizon. The sound was growing louder, rhythmic, steady. An engine. I wasn't imagining it this time. "HEY!" I shouted, voice cracking again. "I'm here." The hum deepened. I caught a flash of light, white this time, cutting across the waves. A searchlight? My heart raced. I waved both arms, blowing the whistle until my lips bled. The light passed once. Then again, and then faded away. They hadn't seen me. I screamed until my voice broke, a raw, hopeless sound swallowed by the sea. I wanted to curse, to cry, but all I could do was shake. The hum disappeared. The ocean was silent again. That was worse than the storm. Hope can drown you faster than water. At some point, I realized my fingers wouldn't move anymore. The cold had numbed them into stiff claws. I couldn't feel my legs either. My chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, like I'd forgotten how to do it properly. Every minute was an effort. I looked at my cracked watch again. The faint glow of the dial said 0:45. I'd been in the water almost 2 hours. The thought hit me hard. Only 2. Felt like a lifetime. 3 more hours until dawn if I was lucky. Maybe rescue teams would fly out at first light. Maybe they already were. But maybe doesn't keep you alive. You alive. I started singing. Not loudly, just under my breath, barely more than a hum. It was an old sailor's tune my father used to sing when I was a kid. He'd been a fisherman before me. Stubborn, sunburned, always smelling of salt. He taught me to respect the ocean, not fear it. He never said what to do when it tried to kill you. The song kept my mind tethered. The rhythm matched the swells up and down, up and down. I imagined him beside me, old and weathered, telling me to keep my head straight. Don't fight the sea, boy. You can't win. Just float, breathe, wait. She'll calm eventually. I whispered back, I'm trying, Dad. I'm trying. The moon climbed higher. The waves softened. The water almost seemed warmer, or maybe I was just too cold to feel it anymore. I watched tiny bioluminescent sparks flicker around me. Plankton lighting up with every movement. They looked like stars scattered in the water, mirroring the sky above. For a strange, peaceful moment, I was floating between 2 heavens, one below, one above. It was beautiful. Too beautiful. I could feel my eyes growing heavy. That's when I slapped myself across the face. Hard. Stay awake, I yelled. The sound startled even me. The pain brought me back for a moment. I forced myself to move, kicking, shaking my arms, blowing the whistle again and again. Sleep was death. I knew that. Hypothermia was quiet. It would tell you you're fine, you're warm, it's okay to rest. Then it would steal you without a sound. I wasn't ready to die yet. Not like this. When I looked at the watch again, the hands read 1:15. 2 hours since the horizon star sank. 3 more to go. Maybe less if the currents had mercy. The sky was clearing now, stars brighter than ever. I fixed my eyes back on my lighthouse star, the one I'd chosen. Still there, steady, faithful. I smiled weakly at it. Guess it's just you and me, I whispered. Don't you dare move. The waves rocked me like a cradle, deceptive, gentle. My body ached, my mind frayed, but I was still breathing. That counted for something. And somewhere far beyond the horizon, I prayed, someone was searching. One was searching. The 3rd hour began with a sound I couldn't name. Not wind, not water, something slower, deliberate. The kind of sound that makes your instincts sit up before your mind can catch up. At first it was a faint splash, somewhere behind me. Then another. I turned my head, every muscle stiff from cold, and saw nothing but dark waves. The moonlight glimmered faintly on the surface, gentle and deceptive. I told myself it was debris, maybe a drifting plank. But then came the ripple. A long, smooth arc slicing through the silver water. It wasn't debris. Something alive was out there. My pulse quickened. The cold fog in my brain cleared instantly. I held still, gripping the crate with both hands, listening. The water moved again. Quiet but powerful. Circling. A dorsal fin broke the surface. Then another. Sharks. The word thudded in my chest like a hammer. I'd known it was possible. Warm currents drew them close to wrecks. Blood, oil, and noise always brought them. But knowing and seeing were different things. These were real. Sleek shadows weaving in and out of the moonlight. I froze, afraid to even breathe too loud. My legs were drawn tight against the crate. I could feel the pressure of my life jacket straps against my chest. The sea went still again. Nothing moved. For a minute I thought maybe they'd passed me by. Then the crate jolted. Something nudged it from underneath, slow, curious, testing. The wood creaked. My heart was a drumbeat in my throat. I whispered, "Easy, easy," as if the ocean could hear. Another bump, a swirl of bubbles beside my arm. Then silence. I stared into the water. Moonlight shimmered across the surface, showing me nothing but my own reflection. Pale, wide-eyed, trembling. For a terrible moment I thought I saw another face there beside mine. A dark shape just beneath, but when I blinked, it was gone. They didn't attack. They were just there, watching. Waiting. It went on for what felt like hours but must have been minutes. Finally, the water stilled again, and the fins faded into the distance, swallowed by the dark. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like forever. My whole body was shaking, not just from cold, from the raw animal terror of realizing how fragile I was out here. You don't think about it on a ship. Steel decks, engines, lights, you feel separate from the sea, in control. But adrift like this, I was nothing but another piece of flotsam. Food, maybe, or a curiosity. I whispered a thank you to whatever force had made the sharks lose interest. Maybe the storm had scared them off. Maybe they'd already eaten enough. I didn't care. They were gone, and I was still breathing. The adrenaline kept me awake for a while. My body was beyond exhaustion, but fear made a better stimulant than coffee. The wind had calmed almost completely. The surface was eerily flat now, the kind of calm that hides danger underneath. I could hear small pops and crackles, plankton or tiny fish brushing against the wreckage. The plank I held onto groaned every time I shifted weight. I started to imagine it splitting in half, leaving me with nothing. So I began to test it carefully, pushing with my palms, listening. Solid enough for now. When the next wave lifted me, I caught a new smell in the air, faint, sharp, unmistakable. Fuel. I twisted around and saw it. A thin, rainbow sheen stretching across the water. Diesel fuel from the ship. It shimmered like melted jewels in the moonlight, beautiful and poisonous. I must have drifted into the slick that spread from the wreck site. The realization terrified me more than the sharks. One spark, one flare, one static charge, and the whole thing could ignite. I needed to move. But where? Every direction looked the same. Still, I kicked slowly, careful not to splash. The current pulled gently north, so I let it. I wasn't strong enough to fight the sea, but maybe I could steer with it. Steer with it. At some point, I realized I was talking aloud again. Little fragments of thought escaping my mouth like bubbles. Keep moving. That's it. Don't stop. Just breathe. Don't look down. It helped. It gave rhythm to the silence. Then, out of nowhere, another sound. A faint thump 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 far overhead. I looked up. A blinking red light. Tiny, distant, but real. A plane. My heart surged. I waved both arms, screaming hoarsely. Hey! Down here! I blew the whistle till I couldn't breathe. The plane passed overhead. Steady, indifferent. Probably a commercial flight. Too high to see a single soul on the sea below. I kept screaming anyway, long after it vanished. The noise felt good, proof that I was still alive, that I could still make sound. When I finally stopped, my throat felt raw. The moon slipped behind clouds again. Darkness swallowed everything. I began to hallucinate. Faint shapes moving in the periphery of my vision. Flashes of color that weren't there. My mind filled the void with memories. I saw Marco's grin. Gold tooth glinting under the engine room lights. I heard Singh's off-key singing from the mess hall. I could almost smell the coffee burning on the hot plate. I talked to them like they were beside me. "Marco, you idiot," I whispered. "You still owe me $50 from poker night." The ocean answered with silence. I don't know how long I drifted like that, half dreaming, half awake. The border between the two started to blur. Then the sea changed again. A tremor beneath the crate, subtle but steady. I thought it was another shark at first, but then I saw light. Faint, moving, beneath the water. Blue-green streaks like ghost fire. Swirling below me. Bioluminescent plankton. Millions of them, glowing in the disturbed wake of something big. The glow brightened, spreading in waves. I realized the movement wasn't coming from below me anymore. It was all around me. Dolphins. A whole pod of them. They moved in graceful arcs, their bodies cutting trails of light through the water like comets. One surfaced just yards away, exhaling a soft burst of air that glittered in the moonlight. Then another. For the first time that night, I smiled. They circled me once, twice, curious, watchful. One swam so close that its dorsal fin brushed the crate. The contact was gentle, deliberate. "Hey there," I whispered. My voice cracked with relief. "Don't suppose you've seen a rescue ship around here, huh?" The dolphin clicked, a sound that felt almost like laughter. They stayed with me for maybe 10 minutes, maybe 20. I lost track. When they finally moved on, heading east, I felt their absence like losing friends. But they left me calmer, less alone. Less alone. I looked at my watch again. The glow of the dial read 02:10.3 hours since the horizon star sank. I was still alive. Still conscious. Barely. But now came the worst part, the waiting. The quiet. The long, slow slide between exhaustion and delirium. My limbs had gone numb entirely. Every muscle shivered out of instinct, not choice. I couldn't tell if the warmth I felt was real or the first stage of hypothermia's cruel lie. The horizon was invisible, sky and sea blending into one endless gray. I stared at it until my eyes watered. That's when I started to see things again. Lights, shapes, flashes that might have been real or might have been my mind breaking apart. A ship mast? A flare? The curve of land? Every time I blinked, it was gone. I wanted to cry but couldn't. My tears mixed with seawater before they even reached my cheeks. I tried to remember the exact coordinates of where we went down. The captain shouted them before the radio died, but the numbers were tangled now, half remembered. Something something north, 40 something west. It didn't matter. The current had dragged me miles away. Then came a sound I hadn't expected. A long, deep call echoing across the water. A whale. The low moan vibrated through the sea, through my bones. Another answered, farther away. For a few minutes, the Atlantic felt alive in a different way, not hostile but ancient. These voices had sung through these waters long before I existed, and they'd keep singing long after. It was humbling. Terrifying, too. But it made me realize something simple. The ocean didn't hate me. It wasn't trying to kill me. It just didn't care. And if it didn't care, then it was up to me to do the caring, to fight for myself, to matter in this vast indifference. That thought lit a spark somewhere inside. Tiny, but stubborn. I checked my watch again. 2:45. The clouds were thinning. In the east, the faintest hint of gray-blue was rising. The promise of dawn. I focused on that line of light, whispering, "Just make it to sunrise. One more hour." The dolphins were gone, the sharks gone, the plane gone. But the ocean had quieted, and that quiet now felt almost kind. I shifted slightly on the crate, forcing my muscles to move. Pain shot through my arms, but that was good. Pain meant blood still flowing. I flexed my fingers until I could feel a dull ache. Then I reached for the whistle again and blew 3 short blasts, the international distress signal. The sound carried over the still water. I listened. Nothing answered. But that didn't matter anymore. I'd send it again in 10 minutes. And again after that. Because I wasn't done fighting. Not yet. The stars began to fade as the sky brightened. Each one winked out slowly, replaced by a pale smear of color. Violet, then pink, then a faint, tired gold. The first light of dawn. I whispered a thank you to it, voice hoarse but steady. "You made it back. Guess I did too." The sight gave me something I hadn't felt in hours. Direction. East. The sun meant east. If I kept my face toward it, maybe I could drift toward shipping lanes. Maybe help was already on the way. I started counting again. This time in minutes instead of waves. Each breath, each heartbeat, each second closer to daylight. By 3 o'clock. The Atlantic was turning from black to blue-gray, the surface rippling gently in the breeze. My fingers ached, my lips cracked, but I was alive. The 3rd hour was ending. The sharks had come and gone. The dolphins had visited. The whales had sung their deep, wordless hymn. And through it all, I had floated, breathing, stubborn, alive. Ahead of me, the first edge of the sun broke free of the water. A thin line of fire spreading across the horizon. I lifted my head, letting the warmth touch my face. Salt crusted my eyelids, but I smiled anyway. 3 down, I whispered. 2 to go. 2 to go. Dawn broke like a slow-moving miracle. The line of fire I'd watched on the horizon widened, spilling gold across the water. The Atlantic, which only hours ago had been a black wall of death, was suddenly radiant, rolling hills of molten light stretching in every direction. For a few heartbeats I forgot the cold, forgot the fear. I was still here to see it. That was something. Then the wind shifted, and the beauty turned back into a threat. The morning breeze strengthened into a sharp westward gust, rough enough to slap spray into my face. The waves, calm moments ago, began to rise again. Nothing like the storm, but strong enough to toss my crate like driftwood. My shoulders screamed each time I tightened my grip. The numbness in my hands had worn off, replaced by pain that pulsed in time with my heartbeat. I was trembling uncontrollably now, not just from cold but from fatigue. Every muscle felt hollowed out. I looked down at my cracked wristwatch. 3:10. 3 hours gone, 2 left. I tried to picture what that meant in land time. A short movie, a dinner shift, half a night's sleep. Out here it felt like another lifetime. The crate gave a new sound, a splinter deep inside the wood. I froze. The top layer had begun to separate, waterlogged and soft. Each wave that lifted me pressed salt water into the cracks. I tried shifting my weight to the side, hoping to even the pressure, but that only widened the split. "Don't you dare," I muttered, pressing my chest against the crate. "You hold together. You and me, buddy." Another groan. Another small crack. That I remembered the safety briefing we'd done months ago. If you lose your flotation, tie debris together with clothing or belts. My life jacket strap was already cinched tight, but I still had my belt. My fingers fumbled clumsily at the buckle, stiff as wood. Took 3 tries to loosen it. I looped it around the crate, pulled until the leather bit my palms, and hooked the end through a knot. Crude reinforcement, but better than nothing. The belt creaked with every wave. I whispered a prayer to it anyway. By mid-morning light, the sea turned dazzling. Every ripple threw sunlight in my eyes. I squinted, shielding my face with one shaking hand. The warmth on my skin felt good, almost too good, like stepping from shadow into a furnace. My lips were cracked open and swollen from salt. When I licked them, it burned. I would have given anything for a mouthful of fresh water. The hunger came next, a deep, twisting ache in my stomach. It wasn't just emptiness. It was my body chewing on itself for energy. I could feel the muscles in my legs tightening, ready to cramp. I remembered the survival manual again. Do not drink seawater. The temptation was brutal. It shimmered all around me, taunting, whispering. Just one sip. My mind invented excuses. Maybe if I only rinsed my mouth, maybe if I swallowed a little. But I knew the truth. I'd seen what salt poisoning did to people. It wasn't thirst. It was madness wearing thirst's mask. So I clenched my jaw and kept breathing through the pain. At 3:40. Something strange happened. The rhythm of the waves began to synchronize with my heartbeat. Each rise felt predictable, like breathing with another creature. The sound of the wind changed to lower, almost musical. It sounded like words, soft and indecipherable. That I told myself I was hallucinating again. But the whisper kept coming, weaving through the hiss of foam. "Rest? You've done enough?" It was the voice of comfort, the dangerous kind. I shut my eyes tight. "Not yet," I said aloud. "Not yet." The whisper faded, replaced by the honest roar of water. I forced myself to focus on the physical world. The sting of salt, the weight of the life jacket, the ache in my shoulders. As long as I could feel those, I was still here. Was still here. The current was carrying me west now. The sun climbed behind me, meaning I was drifting farther from Europe, farther into the open Atlantic. That realization sliced through the fog of fatigue. If I didn't act soon, I could spend days out here, or never be found at all. That I scanned the horizon for anything. Birds, foam, the flash of a hull, but there was only distance. Then, faintly to my left, a cluster of darker shapes bobbed in the water. At first I thought it was more debris. Then the wind shifted, and I saw color, orange. A life raft, half deflated, riding low. Hope kicked like a heartbeat. It couldn't be more than 100 meters away. 100 meters might as well have been a mile, but it was something. I took a deep breath, slid off the crate, and began to kick. The cold knifed me instantly. My muscles screamed in protest. The life jacket pushed awkwardly against my chin, forcing my head back. Each stroke felt heavier than the last. I tried counting again. 10 kicks, rest, 10 kicks, rest, but the current fought me. My lungs burned. I refused to stop. That orange raft was the first real salvation I'd seen. After what felt like forever, I reached it. The raft's rubber surface was slick with oil and algae, but my fingers found a grip. I hauled myself up far enough to rest my chest over the rim, gasping. The interior was half filled with water, a torn seam along one side leaking bubbles. Still, it floated. Inside were two shapes. For a terrible second, I thought they were people. Then the truth hit me. They were empty survival suits, tangled together like corpses. Whoever had used this raft hadn't stayed, or hadn't survived. My stomach twisted. Still, the raft was more protection than a crate. I pulled myself fully inside, ignoring the sloshing water, and collapsed against the side. The plastic smelled of rubber and diesel. My breathing came in ragged bursts, but I was inside something again. Something with edges, with form. The sense of vulnerability eased a little. By 4:10. The sun was blazing. It should have been a blessing, but it was a curse. My wet clothes began to steam. Salt crystals formed on my skin. The glare off the water was blinding. I tore a strip from one of the empty suits and tied it around my forehead like a makeshift visor. The heat dried my lips further, cracking them until blood appeared. Each breath tasted metallic. I licked it away and regretted it instantly. The salt stung like acid. I drifted in and out of awareness. My thoughts looped. Elena's laugh, my father's voice, the smell of coffee in the galley. Each memory felt like a hook dragging me towards sleep, and I had to fight to stay above it. I dunked my hands in the raft's puddle to shock myself awake. The cold burned, but it kept me conscious. Then came another noise, the kind of low rumble that makes your heart stop before your ears register it. Thunder. The sky darkened without warning. Clouds rolled in from the west, thick and bruised. The line of gold on the horizon vanished. The ocean darkened to steel. Wind flattened the waves for a heartbeat, then lifted them twice as high. "No," I whispered. "Please, not again." But the sea doesn't take requests. It simply is. The first sheet of rain hit like thrown gravel. The raft bounced violently, tossing water over the rim. I gripped the rope handles until my arms went numb. Lightning flashed so close I could taste metal on my tongue that I crouched low, instinctively covering my head. Each bolt illuminated the world in fragments. The jagged line of the horizon, the furious churn of water, my own trembling hands. The thunder followed instantly, so loud it felt like it came from inside my chest. The wind grabbed the raft, spinning it sideways. Waves poured over the rim faster than I could bail them. I thought about the sharks again, how they must be following, waiting for the ocean to finish me. I yelled into the wind, not words but sound, pure defiance. Maybe I hoped someone could hear it. Maybe I just wanted the sea to know I wasn't done yet. Done yet. And then, as quickly as it began, the storm opened a small circle of calm, a temporary eye. Rain softened, the waves leveled, and the light shifted to a weird, greenish glow to end that eerie calm. I saw movement ahead, a dark triangular shape breaking the surface, cutting straight toward me. My stomach dropped. Another shark? I braced, clutching the raft's rope, ready for impact. The shape grew larger, closer, then broke fully into view. Not a fin. A buoy. A tall, metal marker buoy, painted red, bell clanging faintly in the wind. It rose and fell with the swell like a survivor itself. The storm must have carried me into its reach. I kicked toward it, every motion agony. When I reached the base, I grabbed one of the lower rungs and tied the raft's rope around it. The clang of the bell echoed through the rain, haunting and beautiful. I was tethered now, anchored to something that touched the world of maps and shipping lanes. For the first time since the explosion, I felt a sliver of safety. The storm passed after maybe 20 minutes. The rain cooled the air, washing the salt from my skin. I leaned back against the raft's rim, watching the clouds tear open to reveal a pale strip of sky. The bell kept ringing softly, each sound a heartbeat, a countdown that I checked my watch again. For 50, almost 5 hours since everything ended. 45 minutes to sunrise proper. Maybe less. I was shivering uncontrollably now. The adrenaline had burned out. What replaced it was something quieter but deeper, a kind of clarity. Every sense felt sharp, raw. I could hear the hiss of foam against metal, the pop of bubbles, even my own heartbeat in my ears. I thought about all the small choices that had kept me alive. Grabbing the crate, holding the belt, forcing my body to move. None of them heroic, just stubborn. Survival wasn't glory. It was repetition. One more breath, one more second, over and over until the numbers added up to life. The buoy had a small platform halfway up the ladder, maybe 2 meters above the waterline. I didn't think, I just climbed. Each rung was slippery, my arms shaking so hard I could barely lift them. But I made it halfway and wedged myself there. Sitting astride the metal frame from that height, I could see farther. The endless sweep of the Atlantic painted in dawn colors. Clouds glowed pink at their edges. The horizon was clean, open, mercifully calm. Then I saw it. A glint of silver far to the north, moving steadily. Not a wave, not a reflection. Something mechanical. A ship. At first I thought I was hallucinating again. I blinked, wiped salt from my eyes. The glint remained, growing slowly larger. A fishing trawler maybe, or a Coast Guard cutter. I couldn't tell, but it was real. I screamed until my throat tore. Here, here. No response, of course. They were miles away, but the buoy had one more feature I hadn't noticed. A small, rusted emergency light at the top, designed to blink red at night. The casing was cracked but intact. If there was still any charge left in the battery, maybe, just maybe, it could flash. I reached up, twisting the corroded switch. Nothing. I hit it with my palm. Once, twice, then, faint. But there, blink. A tiny red pulse against the morning light. Come on, I whispered. See me. Please, see me. See me. The ship, or whatever it was, grew closer. I could make out the white of its hull now, the glimmer of antennas. My pulse quickened so fast it hurt. I waved both arms, shouting until no sound came out. The bell above me clanged wildly in the breeze, echoing my heartbeat. The red light blinked again, steadier this time at 4:59, as the first full rim of sun broke free of the horizon. I saw the ship change course. Turning slightly toward me, I collapsed against the buoy, sobbing, laughing, everything at once. The wind whipped the sound away, but it didn't matter. They'd seen. They were coming. One more hour, I thought. Just one more. The sun was a blinding coin on the rim of the Atlantic, and the red buoy's bell kept tolling beneath me like a heartbeat I could hear. The ship on the horizon was real now, no trick of light, no mirage. White hull, dark stripe along the bow, antennas glinting in the dawn. I could see the faint trail of exhaust hanging behind it. Moving fast. Moving toward me. I wanted to scream, but my throat was sandpaper. What came out was a rasp. A dry croak that the wind shredded before it traveled a meter. I waved both arms instead. The whistle clenched between my teeth. The motion hurt. My shoulders felt like someone had poured fire into the joints, but pain meant blood flow, and blood flow meant life. The vessel grew larger by the minute, but the minutes crawled. Each one stretched, elastic and cruel. The distance between us seemed to shrink slower than thought itself. I could make out a small radar dome, then the silhouette of people on deck. They were looking, I was sure of it. The flash of binoculars caught the sunlight like lightning. See me? I whispered. Please see me. I fumbled for the whistle and blew 3 sharp blasts. The sound cut across the water, thin but clean. The ship slowed. My heart kicked once, hard. Then a puff of orange smoke burst from its side. A flare. A signal back. I almost fell off the buoy from relief. By 5:20. The ship was close enough that I could read the letters on her bow. Maria Teresa. A trawler smaller than a freighter, sturdy and scarred by work. Voices shouted over the engine's roar, English, maybe Portuguese. I raised one arm, half saluting, half begging. A smaller boat detached from her side. A rigid inflatable, 2 men aboard, outboard motor whining as it skimmed across the chop. They were bundled in yellow slickers, faces hidden by visors. One of them lifted a hand and gave me a thumbs up. That simple gesture cracked something inside me. I laughed, then cried, then did both at once. 5 hours of terror unspooled in seconds. The inflatable circled once, careful of the buoy's metal base. "You all right there, mate?" one of them shouted. Accent thick but friendly that I tried to answer, but only a croak came out. "Hang on, we'll get you." They threw a line. My fingers barely closed around it, but they didn't let go. They hauled me toward the raft, 2 sets of arms strong and certain. When they grabbed my shoulders and pulled, I went limp from the shock of touch. Human hands. Warm, solid, real. Real. The climb up the trawler's ladder was a blur of pain and light. My body didn't belong to me anymore. I remember boots on steel, voices overlapping, the smell of diesel and coffee. So familiar it hurt. Someone wrapped a blanket around me. Another pressed a cup to my lips. Warm water, sweet with sugar. It tasted like salvation. Name? And Nick. My tongue barely worked. Nick what? Marin. A woman's voice this time. "You're safe now, Nick. We picked up the SOS beacon from your ship. Coast Guard's on the way." I tried to nod, but the motion sent stars spinning in my eyes. My body finally decided it could rest, and everything went gray around the edges. I drifted in and out of consciousness as they tended to me. In the half-light behind my eyelids, I was back in the engine room of the Horizon Star. The gauges steady, Marco humming beside me. Then the vision tilted, water rushing in. I jerked awake with a gasp. A hand touched my shoulder, gentle, grounding. "Easy, mate. You're on the Maria Teresa. You're all right." I opened my eyes. The world rocked softly under me. I was lying on a bench near the wheelhouse, wrapped in a blanket so thick I could hardly move. The crewman beside me smiled. "Hell of a night you had." I laughed weakly. "You could say that." They asked questions while the trawler cut through the morning sea. What happened to the Horizon Star? How many crew? Where had we gone down? I told them everything I could remember. The explosion, the storm, the darkness, the hours adrift. My voice cracked more than once, but they listened without interrupting. When I mentioned the dolphins, one of them chuckled. "They've saved more sailors than the Navy ever did." Another added quietly, "Sea always gives something back, if you last long enough to take it." That thought sat with me for a long while. At T-540. The sky trembled with a new sound, the deep chop of rotor blades. A Coast Guard helicopter appeared from the east, white and red against the pale sky. It circled once, then hovered low, wind whipping the deck into chaos. One of the trawler crew signaled upward with flares, guiding it in. A rescue diver descended on a cable, touching down with a splash beside the hull. He looked impossibly composed, visor gleaming, orange suit bright as fire. "You the survivor from the Horizon Star?" he shouted over the roar. I nodded. "Let's get you home." They strapped me into a harness. As the winch lifted us clear of the deck, the world fell away in sheets of sunlight and spray. The Maria Teresa shrank to a white speck, her crew waving from below. I raised one shaky hand in thanks. The diver squeezed my shoulder. Steady, reassuring. For the first time since the explosion, I let my body go limp. The sea could rage all it wanted beneath me. I was leaving it behind from the air. The ocean was both beautiful and monstrous. The morning light turned it to hammered silver. I could trace the faint rainbow sheen of the fuel slick spreading like an oil painting, and somewhere near its edge a small red buoy still rocked, bell ringing faintly in the wind. That sight hit me harder than I expected. It looked so small, so harmless. Yet it had been my world for an hour. The pilot's voice crackled through the headset they'd given me. "You're one lucky man, Mr. Marin." "Luck?" I whispered half to myself. "Or stubbornness." "Whatever it is," he replied. You've got plenty of it. Plenty of it. They flew me to the nearest Coast Guard station on the Azores, where the world became fluorescent lights and antiseptic smells. Medics wrapped me in warming blankets, fitted in 4, checked vitals. One of them joked that I looked better than most men who spent 5 hours in the Atlantic. I managed to smile. When they asked what kept me going, I didn't have a neat answer. Words tumbled out. The star, my sister, the dolphins, the thought of coffee. They laughed gently, but I meant every word. Each small thing had been an anchor when the ocean tried to pull me apart. They told me I'd have frostbite in 2 fingers, some muscle damage, but nothing fatal. You'll sail again if you want to. One said I didn't know if I wanted to. Later, wrapped in clean sheets, I was handed a satellite phone. Family contact? The officer asked. I gave him Elena's number. Her voice cracked when she answered. Nick? Oh my God, Nick. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Just breathing proof of life transmitted across half an ocean. Then I said the only thing that mattered. I promised I'd come home. She started crying, laughing through it. You stupid, stubborn man. Don't you ever scare me like that again. I'll try, I said, and meant it halfway. That night, from a window overlooking the harbor, I watched the waves roll under the moon, the same moon that had lit my ordeal. The sea looked peaceful now, docile, pretending innocence. But I knew better. I'd seen its teeth and its grace, its indifference and its strange mercy. People talk about the ocean as if it's a single thing. It isn't. It's 1,000 faces that change with every hour you survive it. In 5 hours, I'd met most of them. Fury, silence, hunger, companionship, deliverance. I pressed my palm to the glass and whispered, "We're even. 5 hours. That's all it was on a clock. Less than a work shift, shorter than a long movie. But in those hours, I lived more lives than I can count. I learned that survival isn't bravery. It's a decision you have to remake every minute. I learned that hope is heavier than any life jacket, but you wear it anyway. And I learned that when the sea tries to take you, you don't fight her. You outlast her." They gave me the buoy's cracked bell later, salvaged by the Coast Guard. It sits on my desk now, a small rusted relic that chimes when the windows open. Its sound is gentle, like breathing, sometimes. When the night is quiet, I hear that chime and remember the rhythm of the waves, the cold, the light, the dolphins' silver arcs in the dark water. And I remember the promise I made to myself in the first hour. Stay awake. Stay afloat. Stay alive. I did.